Español 2, el imperfecto. So way back when we first learned the pretérito, I told you that the pretérito is one of the past tenses in Spanish. And so now we are finally going to take a look at the other one. This is called the imperfecto. So the imperfecto is one of the past tenses in Spanish. It's the second one we're learning after learning the pretérito. And the imperfecto is used to describe events in the past. Of course, it's a past tense, but it's used to describe events in the past a little bit differently than the pretérito is. You're going to use the imperfecto when it is repeated or habitual events. We can indicate this in English to say used to. If something used to happen, meaning it happened in the past, but it was something that was regular, something that happened all the time. For example, when I was little, I used to love pancakes. It is also used to describe events that were in progress. I call this the was-ing tense. If something was happening, then you are going to use the imperfecto. And what's a little tricky with this, and as we have seen with a couple of our other tenses, is that in English, we often express this in more than one word, but in Spanish it is going to be one word. It's just going to be the conjugation of the imperfecto for whatever action you are doing. The other thing that's a little bit tricky is that although we can say that something used to happen, we don't always say things that way in English. In fact, we often simply say that things happened. So for example, I can say in English, I'm trying to make this better, I can say in English that things were happening or used to happen. So for example, when I was little, I used to love pancakes, but I can also just say when I was little, I loved pancakes. But again, what we have to look at is the intent. So if we are talking about a repeated action, or if we're talking about a habitual action, or if we are talking about an action in progress, that's when we are going to use the imperfecto, when those actions are in the past. So let's take a look at formation. It's actually super easy. The first thing you're going to do is take your ending off of the infinitive. So whether it's an AR, ER, IR verb, you're going to take that part off. And then we do have endings for the imperfecto. So let's take a look at those endings. For AR verbs, our endings are aba, abas, aba, abamos, abais, aban. And we have actually seen these in a couple of our activities in the past. The big thing to remember here is that you have an accent on this A and that you do have to punch that in terms of the pronunciation so that you say habamos. There is no accent on the vosotros form in the AR verbs. And then let's take a look at the ER and IR endings. ER and IR verbs share a set of endings, so they are going to use the same set. So those endings are ia, ias, ia, iamos, iais, ian. And for these verbs, you actually have an accent on every single form, and the reason for that is because we want to be sure in pronunciation that we punch that E part of that ending. So it's ia instead of having the stress of the word somewhere else. There are only 3 irregular verbs in the imperfecto. So thank goodness you don't have to worry about a bunch of irregulars for this tense. The 3 irregular verbs you will need to know are ir, ser, and ver. If we take a look at the conjugation of ir, okay, remember that ir means to go, so the imperfecto here would be either used to go, or was going, or as I discussed earlier, you can translate it as went, but remember this is something that is going to be repeated, habitual, or in progress. So ir is iba, ibas, iba, íbamos, ibais, iban. So the AR verb endings are the abas. So it's similar to that, but you're going to put an I in front instead. And again, don't forget this accent, both in writing, but also in pronunciation. You do want to be sure that you say íbamos. We have actually seen ser in a couple of instances when we were doing things in the past. And again, ser is to be. So you're not really going to say someone, I mean, you could say was being, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You could certainly say used to be, and you can say was. And ser is used a lot in the imperfecto because it's usually an in progress type of thing. If you say something was that way, it's usually something that was in progress. So those forms are era, eras, era, éramos, erais, eran. And again, that accent on the nosotros form to make sure that we are saying éramos. And finally, ver. And ver is the easiest one because it does use, all right, it's an ER verb. So it uses the ER, IR endings, but the difference is that you're only going to take off the R instead of taking the whole ending. So ver means to see, so it could mean used to see or was seeing or saw. So the forms here are veía, veías, veía, veíamos, veíais, veían. Again, just like our IR, ER, IR endings, but you're going to start with VE instead of starting just with V. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. I was going, because it's the was-ing form here, something that was in progress, you are going to use the imperfecto, so it would be yo iba. You do have to make sure that you specify that it's yo because remember in this tense, the yo form is going to be the same as the L and AF form. He used to have. Okay, used to have, again, here's used to, so that tells me this is going to be in the imperfecto. It's tener, and then we're going to take off the ER, and we end up with el tenía. Again, remembering this accent, those accents are important. We were. Now, when you use were, you always have to look at what the circumstances are. Usually it's something that was in progress, so we are going to use the imperfecto. In this tense, it is éramos. Remember that were can also translate as estar, depending on the situation, but estar is going to be conjugated just like a regular AR verb, so it would be estábamos there. The girls were wearing. Las chicas se llevaban. Las chicas llevaban. You should not have the say there. So, las chicas llevaban. The girls were wearing. And so that is, again, that was ing tense. Okay. So saying they were wearing, it's an AR verb, llevar, and you're just taking off the AR and then putting that aban. Las chicas llevaban. So that is how to conjugate the imperfecto. I would highly recommend doing a little bit of practice on conjuguemos so that you are familiar with it and you will be seeing it in the reading that we will be doing next class.